Welcome back. In this session, we'll be discussing about the communication for health education. It is a new topic in our social and preventive medicine. The aim of this video is to understand the communication process and also the various types of communication. Let us start with the communication's definition. The definition is that communication is regarded as a two-way process of exchanging ideas, feelings, and information. So, in communication, it is a two-way process. So, we see that it is a two-way process where we are exchanging ideas, his ideas, the information, and also the feelings. So, it is a two-way communication where there is an exchange of ideas, feelings in communication. Now, what is the goal of communication? The goal of communication is to bring in a change in the desired direction. So, now, what is the aim of this communication? We want to bring in a change in our desired way, bringing a change in the desired direction of the person who's receiving the communication. Now, for an example, so exams are approaching. So this is a very studious kid. Okay, he's the topper of the class, and he is his best friend, and he's all into love and just hanging out and all that, dating and all this. So this guy is not studying. His direction is completely different from this topper. So now we see that this person is communicating, giving the information, his ideas, the plan how to prepare for the exam. Then he's giving the information, that is sharing the notes, and also expressing the feelings, how he feels when he tops the class, and he's motivating his best friend. So by motivating him or by exchanging, by communication, what is the person doing? Bringing a desired change, a change in the desired direction. This guy was going in the direction of love, and now it was a wrong path, so he got a desired change into studies. So what does the communication do? It brings us a change in the desired direction of the person who is receiving the communication. This change could be in the form of cognitive or affective, or it could be psychomotor. There are three ways of the change in the receiver. Cognitive, in terms of increasing the knowledge. So we saw with the example that he shared the notes and the PPTs or whatever he had made with him. So in terms of increasing the knowledge, it could be cognitive or it could be affective. So we see that affective in terms of exchanging the patterns of attitude and behavior. You are changing the existing pattern of his attitude and his behavior by communication. What did you do? You change his attitude and behavior, which is affective. Then thirdly, we have psychomotor, by acquiring new skills. Now, this guy was also smart, and then he made flow charts. By making flow charts and flashcards and everything for each chapter, but again he did the communication and he gave his new skills to the other person. That is how the communication could be cognitive, affective, or psychomotor. So we are very clear that cognitive deals with knowledge. Cognitive, okay, cognitive knowledge. Affective, attitude and behavior. Affective, attitude and behavior. Psychomotor, okay, psychomotor skill. Fine, I hope it's clear. Now let's see. Next, what are the components of this communication process? The components include the sender. So we see that it starts from the sender sends a message. Now, the sender, I am dealing with the communication for health education chapter. I am the sender. And what message am I giving? I am giving a message of communication for health education through a channel. The platform, I'm using a mass media, that is I'm using YouTube, that is my channel or platform. and the receiver, the one you're watching the video, the ones who are watching the video, you are the receivers. And now in the comment section, you will give me a feedback. Okay, this was not very effective, or your explanation was nice, it was good, simpler, or you could say it was too complicated. Whatever your comment, your feedbacks could be positive or negative. So we see that the sender is sending a message via a channel to the receiver, and then the receiver gives a feedback. Now let us understand each of this component in detail. That is, we are going to deal with sender in the first place. Sender is the communicator or an originator of the message. So we see that sender is the one who is the main originator, who is the source of the message. He is the one who is the originator or the source of the message. To be a very effective communicator, he should be very well aware of his objectives. Now, I am delivering a message to you guys. I should be very well aware of my aim or the objective. My aim is to make you understand the communication process. So, the message should be clearly defined by the originator. His audience should have the same interest and the need. Now, the medical students or whoever is watching the video, the medical field, they have to have the same interest and the need. The audience should be who are the ones who are having a need of this lecture, or the ones who are interested in this lecture. And I should be very well aware of my message. It should be authentic, it should be very meaningful, it should be clear, understandable, accurate, and very interesting. So my message should be there. I should have a proper message, and the channel of communication is needed. And I should have those ability to explain you guys. So this is regarding the sender. What qualities a sender should have? He should be very well aware of his message. The message should be authentic and clearly defined. He should use a proper medium or a channel for communication, and should have the ability to deliver that message. Moving on to the receiver. The receiver could be a single person, or he could be a group of people. So we see that the communications should always have an audience, and that audience will be a single person, or there could be a group of people. Without the audience, the communication is nothing more than a noise. Now, just if I'm not communicating to anybody, it's just merely compared to a noise. So we see that the audience could be of two types. We have controlled audience and uncontrolled audience. Now, you see here, guys, controlled audience, they are held together by a common interest. This is a classroom. All of the students come with a common interest to gain knowledge. Some come with a common interest to get attendance, so that is like apart for now. Students who come to the college or the universities to attain knowledge with a common interest, they are the controlled audience. Controlled, why? It is because once you enter the HOD's lecture, there is no way you can back out in the middle of the lecture. You are supposed to stay there for at least a hour. So those lectures where you cannot have any interruptions, and it is controlled by a superior one, that is the controlled audience. And the uncontrolled are the ones who are gathered together from motives of curiosity. Now, we see that a person is performing, or the same medical student, they are performing a road play, or a skit. That skit has been a camp, or a skit has been conducted. Now people are gathered there based on their curiosity. They are not obliged to stay there for 1 hour. There is nothing mandatory that once you enter you cannot go out, you need to maintain discipline, nothing like that. They are not controlled. Now when the people or the audience, they gather from the motives of curiosity, it means that they are uncontrolled or a free audience. Whereas the controlled one, they will have a common interest and also certain rules and regulations to be followed. Uncontrolled are very free audience. I hope it's clear. Now let us see. The next thing we have is the message. Message is the information. What is message? Message is the information which the communicator is transmitting to his audience to understand it or accept it and act upon it. So we see that what is the message? We saw that message is something. The message is a information. What is message? It is information which the which the communicator, which the originator or the communicator, which the communicator is transmitting to his audience. So this message is the information which the communicator is transmitting to the audience. A good message. Now we have certain criterias for the message. The message should be in a line with an objective. It should be meaningful. Also, it should be fitting to the audience. So like now, for example, let us consider the rural area where people are completely illiterate. They have no idea about a disease or something. Now you're going there, you're explaining the pathophysiology or the mechanism of action of a drug or the pathophysiology of some disease. So it is not fitting to the audience. Now I can't use these medical terminologies and try to explain them the processes and pathophysiologies, what is happening in my body. So all such things, when I try to explain to the rural people who are completely illiterate ones, if you consider that group of rural areas where they are illiterates and try to explain to them, then that's not an appropriate message. The message should always be fitting the audience. It should be based on the felt needs. Now, if it is a rural area, tell them about how to keep the wells clean, chlorination, ask them about, teach them about the sanitation, hygiene, all such important topics which are felt needs about the contraceptive methods. So that what is required has to be told to the audience. It should be clear and understandable. It should be specific and accurate. It should be interesting, timely and adequate. Culturally and socially appropriate is also very important. We need to make sure we respect the culture, and also socially it has to be accepted and appropriate one. Our message should have all of these criterias, and transmitting the right message to the right people at the right time is a very crucial factor in successful communication. At the right time to the right people, when the right message is given, then it is a successful communication. Let us move on to the third point, that is, we have the channels of communication. By channel is nothing but the physical bridges or the media of communication between the sender and the receiver. So we see that it is a physical bridge. Now I have a message. Now I'm having a message. That is, I am having the information regarding the communication for health education chapter. I have my PPT prepared, the presentation is all ready, the message is all ready, and the originator or the communicator is ready. Now, and the receiver, you audience are ready. Now this message has to reach the audience or the receivers. For them to reach, we require a medium or a channel, and this physical bridge is nothing but the channel. That the channel of communication bridges the gap between the sender and the receiver. Now let us see the media systems. We see that there are three media systems. The total communication is based on these three media systems, which is the interpersonal communication, mass media, traditional or the folk media. Let us start with interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is the face-to-face. You can see here, face-to-face communication is happening between the individuals. It is a face-to-face communication. It is important in influencing the decision. So we see that the most common channel of communication which we used is the interpersonal or face-to-face communication. Since it is a very direct or a personal type of communication, it is more persuasive. You can persuade the person, you can convince the people more effectively. Now, if I sit in front of you, take a student, make him sit in front of me, and then explaining to him, gathering all his attention without any distraction, without going into daydreaming or anything, I grab his entire attention, eye to eye contact, so that creates a good impression, a better form of communication, more effective one compared to the others. So we see that the face to face communication is more persuasive and also it is effective than the other forms of communication. It is particularly very important in influencing the decisions of the undecided persons. We influence the decision. Those undecided people who are very indecisive, they cannot make a decision. The interpersonal communication helps to make a decision in cases of undecided people. The superiority of these interpersonal communication over the mass media is the creation of motivational effect on the audience. So we see that most effective form of communication is interpersonal one and motivational effect. Now we saw that in the first thing we discussed. Imagine the topper going to that person sitting in front of him, explaining to him, see this and this is how, this is the plan for the finals. We have 1 month left, let us study, work hard, we have 12 chapters, let us complete one chapter a day and then do the revisions and all that. Sitting right in front of him and showing the plan and explaining him will be very effective rather than just sending a text message, bro study well. Okay, will he follow that? No, it will be less motivational, less effective compared to the interpersonal communication. The next one we have mass media. In case of mass media, the channel is one or more of the following mass medias like TV, radio, printed media, that is newspapers, etc. Newspapers, magazines, articles, all of these are the mass medias. Mass media has one particular advantage, is that it is reaching a relatively larger population in a short time. Imagine in a national television, when a program is showcased on a national television, it reaches millions of people. YouTube, a platform where the lectures, so those lectures reach millions of people all across the other countries, all over the world in a short time. The limit of that video will be, time limit is short, but it is reaching relatively a large number of the population. Being one-way channel of communication, mass medias will carry the messages only from the center to the periphery. So we see that it is just one-way channel, mass media, radio. Now on radio, they are reading out something or giving some information. Can you cross-question them? Can you interrupt the radio person and then ask him questions? No, it's just one way. Also, it is the feedback mechanism is also poorly organized in cases of mass media. A best example is this YouTube. Let us because we are explaining, we are using the mass media as a channel, as channel of communication as YouTube. Let us give an example of this. Now I am explaining you, it is a one way communication. Also, the feedback what I'm receiving in the comments, it is poorly organized. It might reach me, but is the person in the state to be like he has to, is it mandatory for him to respond back? No, it is poorly organized. The questions you get, the doubts you get, are they always cleared out by your comments? Not always. So we see that the mass media is one way channel where the feedback is poorly organized. It is not effective in changing the behavior of the people. Next, we move on to folk media. Every community will have its own traditional or folk media, like those folk dances, singing, dramas, Nautanki in cases of Uttar Pradesh, and we also have this Harikathas in Western India's. All these group gatherings, religious meetings, all of these fall under this folk media. These are the important channels of communication which are close to the cultural values of rural population. We see that an important channel for communication in cases of rural areas is this folk media. because it is very close to their cultural values. They also preserve the cultural heritage. Health messages are also being communicated through these traditional medias. So, the proper selection and use of the channels will result in successful communication. So, the proper selection of these channels will help in the successful communication. Lastly, we have feedback. It is the flow of information from the audience to the sender. So, we see that now we had a sender. I am your sender. I am the originator or source of information. I am sending this all of these information or the message via a channel, that is YouTube, to the receiver, to you, that is the audience. And now you audience are finding some like faults or finding it appreciable, and then you are giving your feedback. It could be positive or negative. You are giving your feedback back to the sender. It is the flow of information from the audience to the sender. Cool, guys? We see that it is the reaction of the audience to the message. If the message is not clear or it is not acceptable, the audience might reject it. The feedback thus will provide me an opportunity, that is, it will provide the sender an opportunity to modify his message. Now, you could ask me to slow down my speed of explaining, or you could ask me to increase my speed of explaining and cut down the examples, make it sweet and short to the point, or whatever your feedback could be. It could help in modifying the sender. It could help the sender to modify his message and also make it acceptable. So, we also see that in interpersonal communication, the feedback could be immediate, whereas in mass media communication, it will take some time to get the feedback. Now, my video has to reach the audience, the audience have to watch the video, then give me the feedback. If it was interpersonal, if I was sitting right in front of you, then I would, after completing my explanation, I would ask you, did you find it interesting? Then you would say, yes, it was, or no, it was not. So I get the feedback very immediately in cases of interpersonal, whereas in mass media, it takes some time. And also, how do I get this feedback? It is generally obtained through opinion polls, through attitude surveys and interviews. I'm giving an example of a lower level. This is regarding, now we get the polling. They give the opinion polling, and then the surveys have been conducted, interviews will be taken, and all of these will rectify the errors. So with this, we come to an end of the communication process. So we are very clear about the communication process. We have the sender or the source, then we have the receiver. The receiver is also known as audience, and the message is nothing but the content. The channel is the medium what you're using, the message is the content, and lastly we have the feedback, what was the effect of it. Okay, the source, then sender, message, channel, receiver, and feedback. I hope it's clear. Now let us move on to the next topic, that is, we have the types of communication. In types of communication, we have mainly the didactic method, Socratic method. Didactic method is one-way communication. Socratic method is two-way communication. Verbal communication. We also have, now let us see here only, two-way communication, verbal, non-verbal, formal, informal, visual, telecommunication, and internet. So totally we have 8 under communication classification, 8 types of like communications. In one way communication, also known as didactic method, the flow of communication will be one way from the communicator to the audience. So we see this source or the communicator, and this is the huge audience. This is the audience. Clear, guys? We have the example could be a lecture method, or it could be television, radio, newsprint, demonstration, films, exhibition. All of these are one way communication. The familiar examples, we see the lecture method. Now a professor will be standing and he will be giving the lecture for 1 hour, so it's a one way communication, and the audience, that is the students, will be sitting in the class and listening to the lecture. So when the HOD or any professor or the faculty is delivering the message, the lecture, we are listening to that. That becomes a one way communication. There are certain drawbacks of this one way communication. Now, the knowledge is being imposed on the audience. The learning will be authoritative. Little audience participation is seen. Any doubts will be asked. So, any student has a doubt, he will raise his hand, place his doubt, and it will be cleared. Very little audience participation is found, and also no feedback. Do you think every day after every lecture your professors take the feedbacks? No, once in a while fine, they might take it, but every day after every lecture, not possibly. So we see that one way communication, the lecture method, the best example is the lecture method, where the knowledge is imposed on the children. It is very authoritative. There is very little audience participation, no feedback, and it does not influence the human behavior. One way communication has a very little effect on the human behavior, so it does not influence the human behavior. Now let us move on to the that is Socratic method. Socratic method, we have the two-way communication, where the audience also takes part. The communication in which both the communicator as well as the audience are taking participation, then it becomes two-way. So you can see here, these she is the source. Okay, she is the source, this is her audience. Both of them are participating and exchanging ideas. So it is a two-way method of communication, where the communicator and also the audience both are taking part. Audience can raise questions and add their own information, give their own opinion, ideas to the subject. Now for example, this guy this guy is giving his idea, she is sharing her information she had, and he's giving his opinion. So all of these things can be given to the like a source or the originator or the communicator, and she will also express her ideas. In this way, it is a two-way communication, where both the source, the sender, as well as the audience or the receiver, both are involved. Okay. So now we see that it is very active and democratic method. It will likely to influence the behavior. One way, less likely to influence the behavior, whereas the Socratic method, it is the learning is very active and it is likely to influence the behavior compared to the one way communication. The examples could be the group discussions, symposium, panel discussions, role playing, workshops. All of these are the examples of Socratic method. Now let us move on to the verbal communication. Verbal communication, the traditional way of communication, where it has been by word of mouth. We see that the verbal is by the word of mouth, and we see that it is a very the direct verbal communication by word of mouth has a lot of hidden meanings. It is very persuasive. No, non direct or written communication may not be as persuasive as the spoken word, wherein there is a face to face communication, and it is a very traditional way of communication. Moving on to the non verbal communication. The pictures are given here, guys. I hope you're seeing face to face communication, verbally, word of mouth. Okay, face to face, very traditional. Moving on to non verbal communication. In non-verbal communication, where there is indirect interaction, the communication can also occur without any words. Non-verbal, without words, where there is a range of bodily movements, change in the posture, gesture, facial expressions like smiling or raising the eyebrows, frowning, staring, gazing. So we see that Indian household, what do the mother do when the child misbehaves? When the guest arrives, she just raises her eyebrows, gets a frown on her forehead, and then stares, gazing at the child. And by their she didn't utter a word, but then by this facial expression of her, the child understood that okay, if I don't stop now, I'm gonna get a whack later. So it is better I stop it right then and there. So by this non-verbal communication, the mother, the sender, has already communicated to the receiver without any words. So that is a non-verbal communication, where the communication is occurring without words, with the bodily movement, by the postures, gestures. Also in the classrooms, when you can't speak, when the professors are taking the lectures or the seminars are going on, what do? You just look at your friend and make some facial expression. Oh, I'm drowsy, it's boring, I'm done with this, let's go home. So all of these postures and the bodily movements, the facial expressions, all fall under the non-verbal communication. Silence is non-verbal communication. Also, we are very well aware that the silence can speak louder than words. Let us move on to the formal and informal communication. So we see that formal communication follows certain lines of authority. We see that formally, when we speak, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we address. Good afternoon to the respected dignitaries. All of these is the formal communication. We are glad to have you all here today. This is what formal communication. Informal communication. Hello everybody. Hello guys. Hope you are all doing fine. Let's enjoy the. So this is how informally you're speaking. It could be to your friends, to the mates of your own age, to your siblings. That's informal communication where there is no line of authority. Informal, also known as grapevine communication, we very important thing is the gossip circles, which falls under this informal communication, where lots of gossip. You know what happened today? This girl fought with that guy. This girl and that girl fought, and this all of this gossip. The teacher screwed him up. All of these things, all these falls under the gossip circles, and this is informal communication where there is no line of authority. Informal channels will be more active. If the formal channels do not cater to the information needed, then what happens? The We also saw that the message should always be to the fitting the audience, and it should be based on the felt needs. If it is not, then the formal communication will become very less active. Moving on to visual communication. Visual communication could be in the form of charts, graphs, pictograms, tables, maps, posters. So you can see that you're going to so you have some SPM posting, you're making charts, going to the school visits, you're teaching the children how to wash hands, regarding the hygiene, all of those things. What you do, how to eat, how to keep themselves clean, go to bed early, wake up early, brush your teeth, shower every day. All of these you have made a very cute chart. These graphs explaining the statistics, the populations to the wherever it is required. So you go, and contraceptive methods, you can held a camp in your in your lane or whatever, wherever you are residing, there you can gather the audience, do a road skit or perform a camp, and then you can influence the audience. You, without any words, you can use this charts, graphs, pictograms, tables, and use them and communicate your message to the audience. Telecommunication and internet. Now we come to the telecommunication, where the process of communicating over distance is done using the electromagnetic instruments. So we are communicating those people over lots of far distance from us through this electromagnetic instruments, which could be the radio, television, internet. So it includes the text messages, WhatsApp, and then we have Facebook, Twitter, all of these, Instagram. All of these will fall under the telecommunication and internet. These are the mass communication medias, where telephone is known as a point to point telecommunication systems. With the launching of the satellites, we see that a big explosion has been seen in terms of electronic communication all over the world. So, with this, we see that the total communication means using every communication option to teach the deaf child. You could use the graph, pictogram, map, poster, or you could do this non-verbal action, or the two-way, any form of communication which has been used to teach the deaf child falls under the total communication. What is total communication? Any means of communication used to teach the deaf child. So we are done with the types of communication. We saw one way communication, two way, verbal, non-verbal, formal, informal, visual, and telecommunication and internet. Okay, guys, let us summarize without saying uh, what are all the types of communication we saw. The first one way communication. Then we have two way communication, verbal communication, non verbal communication. Then we saw the formal communication, informal communication. Lastly, visual communication and telecommunication. So you can remember it in the form of group. Okay, we have one way, two way, visual, non visual, formal, informal, verbal, non-verbal, formal, informal, visual, and telecommunication and internet. So with this, we come to an end of the processes and the types of communication. In the next video, we'll be continuing with the other topics. I hope everything is clear. If you have any doubts, put it in the comment section and I would try to clear them. Thank you.